It's like its own thing. It's like it's not like a part of this music. It's not
You're saying.
I've looked at it, first thing.
Why don't you get 20 years?
I have no idea.
Just like, hanging in there.
Yeah. I just got back from being my wife.
We should have moved up. That's how like. It's like. Most of them were.
I know.
I haven't looked at.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, we got. Yeah. So, yeah.
So she all turned out.
Yeah. I've got some. Community member goes to the website. You want to?
No, I will today, but I have email.
There's only some other video times that I can check the future this way. If there's, I don't even have my picture.
Right, are you, family members?
No, I use our crisis and team with regularity. I've had some grievances. And I think that the concern is better addressed to sort of about.
Mr. Andrew. You might need
North
some-
Oxford.
you might want to consider. Or maybe you might need some.
I could be on the board, but the North Oxnard could go. I don't mind. But that.
Yes. Right, right. That's it.
My intention is.
Yeah. So you can speak.
Yeah.
Read it. Yeah. That's the form. They can read for you.
That
but
would
it's
be
gonna
really,
have-
okay, so can I leave an email address where I can get a? Oh, so if I respond to that with my commentary?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Jennifer.
Joseph.
Hi, Jennifer. Tell me, we need one.
Okay, yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. It is 2:00, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for remembering to come at 2. And if anyone who didn't know that we changed our time and showed up online at 1 or here, we apologize, but we have a new time starting at 2. Okay. We are going to I'm going to ask the interpreter to please come forward and talk about the instructions for that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ricardo Garcia, and I have Diana Biden with me working for this meeting today. To access the interpreter on Zoom and via computer, after the host activates language interpretation mode, click the interpretation icon. It will show the option English and Spanish interpretation available. Then click the language that you would like to hear. Optional, to only hear the interpreted language, click mute original audio. Via phone, and your meeting controls tab more at the bottom right of the mobile phone. Sorry, my this. In your meeting controls tab more at the bottom right in the mobile phone app, on top right in the tablet after the host activates language interpretation mode. If the icon is not visible, tap the screen to make it appear. English and Spanish language interpretation is available. As a reminder, speak slowly, pause between sentences, speak clearly, avoid interrupting or multiple people speaking, avoid using metaphors, acronyms, slang, or idioms. Interpret signals during the meeting, speak slower, raise your voice, interrupt for clarification, or communicate a concern. Acceso al intérprete a través de Zoom por computadora. Después de que el anfitrión active el modo de interpretación del lenguaje, haga clic en el símbolo de interpretación. Mostrará la opción de interpretación disponible en inglés y español. Después haga clic en el idioma que desea escuchar. Es opcional para escuchar solo el idioma interpretado. Haga clic en la parte donde dice Mute Original Audio. En los controles de la reunión, oprima More después de que el anfitrión active el modo de interpretación del lenguaje. Esta opción estará localizada en la parte inferior a la derecha de la aplicación. Si es por su tableta, estará localizada en la parte superior de la derecha de la aplicación. Una vez ahí, haga clic Language Interpretation para poder escoger la opción disponible en inglés o en español. Si el símbolo no está visible, toque la pantalla para que aparezca. Un recordatorio: hable despacio, pause entre oraciones, hable con claridad, evite interrumpir o hablar varias personas entre sí. Evite usar metáforas, siglas, doble sentido o modismo. Señales del intérprete durante la junta: hable despacio, alce la voz, interrumpir para clarificación o para comunicar algún problema. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. we'll move to introductions. Start with Genevieve. We're gonna go around and just say who we are and what district we're representing. If you're a member of the executive board, please say so. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Genevieve Flores Faro, District 1 of Planning by Supervisor Matt Revere. Thank you.
Hi, Danielle Robkin, District 4, and Janice Harris.
Hi, Jennifer Morrison, District 4, Janice Harden.
Good afternoon, Michael Rodriguez, District 5.
Hello, James Espinoza, District 4, veteran representative and second vice chair.
Hello, Sean Pusey, law enforcement representative.
Martha Knudsen, Assistant County Counsel.
Good afternoon, Dr. Loretta Dennery, the Environmental Director.
Cheryl Heitman, Chair of the Board, District 1.
Diane McKay is on her way, she's 5 minutes late. Janice Gardner, District 3, and I'm the Chair of the Bylaws Committee. And Executive Board Member.
Good afternoon, CJ Keating, District 2, and Secretary.
Good afternoon, Liz Warren, the Executive Director of the Client Network, a consumer advocate, a BH client, and I represent Supervisor Lopez from District 5.
Jeff Davis, District 2, representing Supervisor Carl's office.
I'm sorry.
No, we want full District 3, I'm also with Spirit of Sandoval.
Chris Ada, District 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. Matt Levere, representing the Board of Supervisors.
Great, thank you. We do have a quorum, so we will move on. There's nobody with just cause, nobody with emergency circumstances, so we move to the approval of the agenda, which is an action item. So I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second motion.
Great. Moved and seconded, any comments? All right, we have to do a roll call. CJ?
I'll start with Jeffrey Davis.
Here.
Okay. James Espinoza. Genevieve Flores.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Okay. Genevieve Harris.
Yes.
Janice Gardner.
Yes.
Myself. Matt Revere.
Yes.
Naomi.
Yes.
Diane Hayes. Jennifer Morrison.
Yes.
John Hughley.
Yes.
Dahlia Robin.
Yes.
Michael Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bruce Tejeda.
I'll abstain.
Nancy Borchard just arrived, by the way.
Oh. Great, great. Marty, Liz Warren,
Yes.
and Chair Cheryl Heitman.
Yes. Next, that passes, by the way, unanimously. Moving now to the approval of the minutes from December 16th, and just as a reminder, if you weren't here, but you read the minutes and you felt familiar with them, you can vote. All right, so it's a action, it's a roll call vote again, CJ?
Right, Nancy Borchard.
Oh, sorry, we didn't have a motion.
Oh, thank you. Oh, please, a vote.
Yes.
Yes, we do need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. No comments. We'll now have a roll call vote, please.
All right, Nancy Borchard,
Yes.
Jeffrey Allen Davis,
Yes.
James Espinoza,
Yes.
Genevieve Flores Howard,
Yes.
Janice Gardner,
Yes.
Naomi Supervisor Matt Revere,
Yes.
Naomi. Yes. Diane.
Yes.
Oh. Jennifer Morrison,
Abstain.
Sean Houston,
Yes.
Dahlia Robin,
Yes.
Michael Rodriguez,
Yes.
Chris Tejeda,
Abstain.
Liz Warren,
Abstain.
and Chair Heitman.
Yes. That motion passes.
Yes.
So moving along, public comments.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have a public comment? Okay, come on up to the mic over here, please.
Very brief. My name is Joseph Ramirez. Hold on, I can't hear you.
Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Joseph Ramirez and did I just turn it off?
No, no, you're just.
I didn't want There we go. Hi, my name is Joseph Ramirez and my commentary is very brief and I have an email I can actually submit in writing. My concern is about our crisis and referral protocols. They tend to prioritize something that I feel is contrary to mental wellness. If we want to sort of establish that we care or whatever it may be, that we need to be proactive about that and that the protocols, they seem to prioritize not only referral, but that they're not priority to the crisis, resolving the crisis, and then I would imagine the other matters protocol to be secondary. And so, for example, they may want to know, okay, what's your age? And so have you been thinking about hurting yourself, or are you using a substance, or what are you, what's going on? What happened? And all of that, I think it can maybe be sort of done differently. And that what I would say about it is what you'll notice in a lot of venues in the county, but this as well, is that there is a rhetorical component to our protocol. And if we're insisting maybe on something that is less important to that caller, to their mental wellness, to their social well-being, that those things are maybe secondary to that person who's calling in, that something is happening. I want to talk about what's happening or whatever it is. For me, I'm very good with the language. I have a strong coping skill. Not everyone does, but that I think the message that I'm understanding, if I'm just any person that's calling in, the message is, we're not, how can we help you? How do you not know how, I can get a little bit righteous about that, but the reality, I think, if we wanted to address it, is it doesn't sound like you're listening. And that the rhetoric there is just sort of problematic, I think, for the social wellness of that caller. So the crisis and referral team, they have a protocol to understand, are you at your rope's end? Are you, struggling to the extent that you're hurting yourself? Do you have a plan? That kind of thing. They need to know that, and that they do need to establish that first and foremost, are you safe? That's important, but that when other things sort of preempt or eschew what is more important to that caller and their understanding, that becomes contrary, I think, to the intention of that program, the crisis and referral team, that we want them to restore social wellness, and the person is calling in, restore that person's social wellness, and that sometimes, for just as an aside, the priority sometimes seems to, we don't want to condone what you may be doing. We don't want to enable someone who's in codependent mode or something like that. And I really don't want them to prioritize that. That seems to be an agenda issue at the call centers, that even if we're calling Amazon, we're getting a situation where that rhetoric becomes very problematic. Amazon or other call centers is a great example where we're calling it that Venmo, and that the priority doesn't. Are you sure this is about customer service? It doesn't feel like it. Okay, so what can we do? Listen, I think, and I've made a strong appeal to their supervisors to say, we can employ active listening. That's one of the terms from psychology. If you study psychology, they'll tell you about active listening. Tell me what you think I do. But that otherwise, it doesn't sound like the person is listening. It doesn't sound like the person cares. that is problematic. We want to restore the social wellness regardless of what we don't want to condone about, yes, but that the relationship between yourself and your family is interferes or problem. Okay, true. But I don't want you to stop me because you don't want to condone or enable. I want you to restore mental wellness and let the police stop me and stick to the scope of the program. I think that scope intends social wellness. And that if we have a priority to that does recognize the protocol are safe, but that also, it does feel like someone is listening. And if that means just very actively saying, I think you said this, is that what you meant? Simple. And so active listening is that's the main thing, but that I think our protocol needs to really address the social wellness of that caller. And if we're not addressing that social wellness, I mean, we could listen to any given call and just say, okay, if our main priority is to get this person registered at least BH, do they feel like their social wellness is being addressed seriously, or do they feel like we're just trying to get them as part of the, part of the cog in the wheel and the system and the machine? I don't want to feel like that. I want to feel like somebody is concerned about restoring social wellness, and it's easy to do. Just ask me what you thought. Is this what you meant to say? Because I understood this. It sounds difficult. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry your time is up. Thank you for your comments.
Of course. Thank you.
Are there other public comments either on Zoom or in the room? Anybody else? You did receive a couple of written ones. And there's a long one from Jasmine Duran, who I think there's copies now. Yes, everybody has a copy. Okay, so everybody has a copy of that, so we have to read that, but thank you to her for her comments also. Okay, moving along, chair announcements. I don't really have, well, I do have a couple things actually. First of all, we did remind and ask all of you, if you have time right after the meeting, to stay just for a few minutes so that we can break into our working groups and sort of just establish when they're gonna start, when your group will start meeting. It's very fast, simple, hopefully we'll get through it in plenty of time, so don't get you out of here later at all, but just in case, because we do want to get started with our work groups. And the second thing is, there has been, I know a lot of chatter going around about membership and requirements and different things that about whether members can be, or whatever their relationship is with funding from behavioral health. And all those are important issues. And you also have a copy of the WIC code in front of you, so you can refer to it. If you feel you have questions about it, you can certainly reach out to myself or our county council. But it is not agendized, so we will not be discussing it at this meeting. We can discuss it at a future meeting. But I just want to let you know, I know there are some questions from people, and we want to make sure we do answer those, but I don't feel like we've sort of had all the information yet, and there are other groups that we want to coordinate with, so this will be agendized, but not today. Okay. Moving along, director's report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please see in your packet, this month's agenda. Or not agenda, director's report. So thank you all for the feedback that we got over the last couple of months on the type of content that you would like for this report and the topic areas. And so we've done a lot of work to really streamline what we're reporting out. Obviously, day-to-day information is important, but for this group, we really wanted to make sure that we hit kind of the high points of all of the various areas within the department. And as you're all aware, we are still shifting and changing organizationally as a result of all of these state initiatives. And so we are organizing ourselves in this report based on our new division structures that we just discussed back in October. So the first part of the report, obviously it's very large with our managed care operations, given that it's a huge piece of our function as the behavioral health plan under DHCS and the various areas within managed care operations all the way from our project implementation to policy to care management and provider network management. So one of the areas I wanted to bring to your attention on page 2 of the report is the provider network management section. And for those of you who've been around, you may have known this group as previously known as the VCBH contracts unit. And so as we've transformed into a managed care plan, we've had to add on new functions and responsibilities. And so it really required us to transform our existing contracts program into a full provider network management team. And so the P&M team consists of 4 specific units. One is credentialing and enrollment. One is provider relations. The third is contract and purchase order management. And the 4th is provider compliance and monitoring. And as I noted in our October conversation and reiterated during my board presentation to the board of supervisors in December, all of these changes are to be in requirement, in compliance with the new requirements under our integrated behavioral health plan, which just became effective in January 1st, our integrated contract, and the managed care structure under administrative integration. All of these moves and shifts were done using existing staff, or positions that we were able to obtain through add deletes, and we're all net neutral to the county. So we are using within our own means to make all of these adjustments, and we'll continue to make adjustments using our existing positions or reclassifications of existing positions as we move forward into this transformation. So I just wanted you all to know kind of how we've grown from just, traditional contracts oversight into this entire managed care structure and new functions and responsibilities there. Another piece that I wanted to bring to your attention is on our forensics and justice evolved section on page 4, our CARE Act. We've had officially 2 clients for CARE Act, and kind of the update and summary there. I had a brief conversation with the judge a couple of weeks ago, and he's very excited and says, so far so good. And so thank you to our public defenders team, my team, and all the folks who are working so hard at the court system to make this successful. And so we will see how this rolls out throughout the year. Also Prop 36, which just passed recently, our teams in the county have been working on, figuring out what this is going to look like locally. We've had some referrals already and are working on determining, how the program services will ultimately be delivered, whether it's by VCBH or contractor or a combination of both. So it really will kind of just depend on the volume that we see. So that's something that we'll be monitoring there. Next, on page 5, I wanted to give a special shout out to our substance use services prevention team. I don't know if most of you've seen in the news, fatal overdoses are down significantly across the country, including in California and Ventura County. We've had a very significant decline, and there are a lot of reasons for that, a lot of questions as to what's working and how, and there's a lot out there as far as, supply levels on the law enforcement side haven't necessarily dropped. But what we're seeing is increased availability to medications for addiction treatment, naloxone, and overall awareness of the dangers of fentanyl. And so we have obviously at the county put a lot of work and energy into this for the last 15 years, and really the last 10 years in this department. And then thankfully had a lot of support from our county leadership and our execs and our board of supervisors last year to launch another fentanyl overdose prevention campaign throughout the county, really expanding it to the masses and not so much focusing just on folks within the treatment systems, but really the larger population. And we think a combination of all these efforts is probably what's leading to the decline. So just wanted to share that, and thanks to the team. And there's some nice pictures in here, this report. And then finally on the report, wanted to give an update on the infrastructure, since that was requested to be included in each report. The update is that obviously we're still waiting for BHAB because the applications just went through in December. We anticipate hearing back from the state probably around May. So that's, the earliest we'll probably know, and then we'll know subsequent rounds probably around that time. And then as far as our non-BHAB funded program, including the East County CSU, that is still well underway with architecture, general services, and moving along. We are repurposing an existing substance use treatment clinic services building for the CSU, and so that means we have to move those staff into a new building. The county just.
I'll ask that.
Okay, so to do that, the county is leasing a new building in Simi Valley for the old substance use treatment staff and for the mental health staff that are also in Simi to be in one building. And that lease was just approved by the board last month. So once that building's ready, we move everybody out while they're working on the current building, everybody will move in. So we're still on track for this all to happen by the fall of this year, and so we will keep everyone posted as we go. And then the last update I wanted to share that's not in here, but I just wanted to provide a verbal update on Vista Del Mar, that they are still working through under their compliance and monitoring agreement. At this point, they're still working with their third party over their action plan and have been working back and forth with our team on getting their action plan and monthly reports ready. So they are still at 2 per month, and we will be able to increase their census once we, receive a plan and a monthly progress report, and they, meet kind of the criteria laid out by the action plan put together by their monitor. So that is the update there. Any questions?
Liz, sorry. Liz? Go ahead. No. Oh, just a quick one. So, I believe I heard you say that the new CSU will be in Simi Valley and will be that, previous substance.
Yeah, okay, we reported that out. So that's the building that's on 3150 LA Avenue. Yeah, thank you.
Liz?
Yes, thank you everybody so much for the report. Very thorough. I have a couple quick questions. Where will the first item that you talked about, the provider network management component is switched that switched over from VCH contracts unit, does that sit under SPA?
No, that sits under managed care operations.
And who heads that up?
Karen Lee is our chief of our managed care operations. So the work chart that we went over in October includes the P&O folks. That whole section is there.
Okay, and then the 2 clients that have gone through from the forensics division that have gone through the CARE Act, are they getting peer support like we had recommended and discussed a couple of months ago?
Okay, so council, you want to get on the mic?
I'm sorry, CARE is a confidential court. We cannot tell you about the details of the care plans of the individuals that are in that program. Sorry.
So you can't tell me the clinicians or professionals that are attached or the paraprofessionals that are attached to that court?
That's
You can't
not,
tell me the staffing of the court?
oh, that's a different question. You asked whether or not those 2 people were receiving it for a certain type of service. That we cannot confirm or deny.
Okay, so our peer support specialist staffing, the care court?
I'm gonna ask Dr. Shipper to come up and talk about staffing.
For the present, there's a vacancy that we're in the process of recruiting for, but at this time, there isn't a peer who's attached to the care program.
But the goal is to have one?
Yes,
Okay, and how far away are we from hiring somebody?
that's, I don't have an estimate for it.
Okay, but the job's posted, it's budgeted, it's allocated.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. The other thing I wanted to double check was how long, regarding Prop 36, you're gonna be able to implement changes, waiting to see the volume, how long, like, what's the ETA on that?
John.
I had a feeling. So the estimates have ranged. It's been really hard for District Attorney's Office to really try and figure out the nature and the flow of referrals. And so I can tell you, to date, the first month, there have been 21 who have been screened by the District Attorney's Office and said to be potentially eligible. That's different than necessarily those people being interested in the program or accepting services, but so far in the first month, 21 has been the technically the eligibility pool.
Thank you.
Nancy?
Thank you very much.
Dr.
And then,
Shepherd,
I'm sorry,
Oh, that's
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I apologize. So regarding, the substance prevention team and the great work that's being done, with not only, the decrease in ODs, but some reversals. I'm just curious, the substance prevention team, with the new, reorganization under BHSA, prevention efforts are gonna be going away. Is that correct? Starting next year, and what does that look like?
So no, prevention efforts are not going away. Prevention efforts are being shifted at the state level from DHCS, Department of Healthcare Services, to California Department of Public Health, CDPH. What is unclear at this time is how much, if any, allocation will shift down to the local level. This is also specific at this point to MHSA prevention. So that is not the same funding stream as this activity, which is funded through substance use block grant
Okay,
and opioid settlement funds.
okay, great. So we know that PE&I is gonna be going away here within the next year or so, but this is not that funding. This is the block funding.
Correct.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you. And regarding, I just wanted to know, again, update, I was part of a stakeholder group that met out at the MHRC on Lewis Road in December with the architect and the designers, and they were getting ready to submit the plans. Where are we on that?
John?
So we're basically waiting to hear back on the BHCIP funding, so we submitted for funding and like everybody else in the state, we're waiting to hear. So
Is there any, I mean, a month, 2 months, do you have any idea when they're gonna be announcing anything?
May.
May, lovely, okay. Thank you very much. And the last thing is, why do you think it's taking so long for Vista Del Mar to become, like, more compliant, as they're monitoring and working on their action plan so that we're still only able to admit 2 DCBH clients, and both the crisis calls are having to go out of county for out of county placement. This has gone on for extraordinarily long period of time.
You would have to ask them that.
So who's the person that they liaison with our department?
So Barron's is their third-party monitor, and that is who our staff work with.
And who's the BCBH staff that works with Barron's, so I can reach out? I got the
Karen-
BCBH staff.
Karen Lee.
Karen Lee, okay. So I'm just, should I not have a sense of urgency for this to happen?
Sure, but again, they're under the compliance and monitoring agreement, and they are moving at the pace that they have chosen to move under.
And was that dictated by us?
No, so they have checks that they have to check off, right? Things that they need to meet.
So it could go for a year, 2 years before they can take any more than 2 BCBH clients in county for crisis placement? That seems a bit odd.
So they, as council reminded me, they will be under the monitoring agreement for at least 12 months. Because that's what they've signed on,
Right.
and the pace at which they can increase is up to them. And that's what's outlined in the agreement.
Okay, so you don't sign off on their ability to take additional BCBH clients?
When they request it, should they request it, a request would be evaluated at that time.
Right, okay. I think I'm just gonna, for the record, say this is very disappointing, this process. I know this is a big lift. We're trying to turn around a culture there that's extraordinarily toxic and dangerous for our clients. But the fact that we still have people that we don't have beds, crisis beds that we can utilize, and we're still sending folks out of county is a problem. It's a big problem. So I would just like to urge anyone who has any kind of input or sway in this process to have, I don't know, to articulate a bigger sense of urgency to get this done. Thank you.
Nancy?
Dr. Sherber, could you tell us, in regard to the peer support, that we were just talking about, what kind of qualifications do the peers need to have? Are they supposed to be certified? Must they be, those kinds of things?
Yeah, they're not required to be certified and hired, but there is a timeframe in which they have to become certified once they start. And off the top of my head, the one sort of qualifications is that of lived experience.
And I'll add that there are multiple levels within the classification. So there's peer support specialists, I think it goes 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And so at the level 3 is the full certification level. And so someone, as John said, does not have to be certified to start, but they can come in at a higher level should they have already obtained certification prior to employment here.
Thank you.
And I think just for clarification, the lived experience that you're looking for is not just above and beyond having an individual with a mental health or behavioral health challenge, but someone specifically who might have gone through courts or forensics experience. You want that lived experience?
Well, in general, there's 3 types of experience that one can qualify for. And, they're the higher peers is, I don't know that we would go so far as to select based on their specific type of lived experience. It's going to be a broader sort of evaluation of their qualifications and how they present.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna move into presentations. I think they're within the time certain, so we are gonna let them go next. And we are pleased to have some experts on homeless housing solutions, and our own Sarah Sanchez, who's the Critical Care Navigation Services Division Chief. That's a lot of words. So with us, we have Kimberly Albers, who's the Deputy Executive Officer of Homeless Solutions, and this Director Homeless Solutions Director. Turn it over to you.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to come and share with the Behavioral Health Advisory Board today about the new Home Key funding source and efforts to address homelessness. I'm excited to be here with 2 of my colleagues in addition to Sarah. I have Tracy McCauley here, who is our Housing Solutions Director, and Jen Harkey, who is our Continuum of Care Director. And the Continuum of Care is a Department of Housing and Urban Development mandated policy board that also does a lot in our community to address homelessness. And one of the ones you may be most familiar with is the point in time count that's just literally ongoing right now, that happened primarily last Tuesday. So if you were a part of that, thank you. We are together represent the housing and homelessness leadership in the County Executive Office. You could go to there we go. There we are. Kimberly, as the Homelessness Solutions Director, Tracy and Jen are here with you today, along with Sarah from Behavioral Health. We'll go to the next slide. So I'm just going to briefly go over the Ventura County Homelessness Plan, because this is fairly recent. Thanks to the Board of Supervisors for their leadership on deciding on actions and approval of the plan. The plan is divided into 5 action areas that can be applied to incorporated cities and unincorporated areas across Ventura County. Each prioritized action area consists of proposed goals and next steps that, when completed, will address homelessness across the region. We have those 3 action areas. One is the housing prioritization and funding, which really means we need to be emphasizing permanent housing as well as preventing people from falling into homelessness. Action area 2 is regional coordination and leadership. The board created both my position and Tracy's position over the last year, as well as a task force on homelessness and homelessness coordinating committee to really provide the level of leadership and prioritization that this crisis needs in our community. Action area 3 is outreach and service delivery. This is actually applying a multidisciplinary, consistent, consolidated approach to outreaching to persons experiencing homelessness. Action area 4 is data-driven decision-making, which is a need to increase the use of a comprehensive data and dashboard to really capture the progress to where we can really report out to the community what's really happening. And action area 5, representation and inclusivity. We really want diverse voices, including persons that have that lived experience, just like we were talking about, of homelessness at all levels of decision-making when it comes to homelessness. Go to the next slide. So really briefly, it's obviously always a complicated system that when we think about how to address our homelessness crisis. But here, we're just trying to show you these 5 key components of how any community will end homelessness. We have the outreach and coordinated entry, prevention and diversion, and we use diversion a lot in a lot of different places in government. By that, we mean, right, diverting someone away from homelessness, either before it happens or immediately when it happens. Emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, that's our short or medium-term intervention where someone just needs to get back on their feet. And then permanent supportive housing for those with longer, more chronic issues to address their homeless crisis. So with that, I'm going to bring up Tracy, our Housing Solutions Director, to share more about the Home Key Plus new funding source.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you all for allowing me to be here today. For the record, I'm Tracy McCauley. I'm the Housing Solutions Director working out of the County Executive Office. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give you, well, something happened in this slide, but that's okay. I wanted to give you a quick overview of the Home Key program, which was started during the COVID-19 pandemic to quickly create shelter and housing resources for people, thank you, for people vulnerable to COVID-19 experiencing or at risk of homelessness. It was originally one-time funding, which was authorized in a subsequent budget to ultimately provide 3 rounds of funding for Home Key. Over the next few slides, there's a couple pictures, including this one of some of our Home Key funded projects. But I wanted to highlight that we actually received to the county $81 million in funding for housing and interim shelter. And what you can't see on the slide is someone here kindly lent me theirs because I don't have the numbers in my head. I wasn't going to read them, but I will since you can't see. So we created 69 interim shelter units that are currently converting to permanent supportive housing, 95 permanent supportive housing units, 51 permanent housing units for people at risk of homelessness, and 39 transitional housing units for transition-aged youth between the ages of 18 and 24. So we've had great successes and really expanded what we're able to offer to people experiencing homelessness through the Home Key program. Statewide, the program represents an unprecedented investment into permanent housing for people experiencing homelessness and resulted in more than 15,800 new units statewide. So it's a significant program. I think that's good. Thank you. Next slide, please. Oops, okay. Sorry about that. I think most of you have copies. So Home Key Plus, the Home Key program, which is now dubbed Home Key Plus, was refunded through the Proposition 1, the Behavioral Health Services Act. And the state of California issued a notice of funding availability in November of this year. So notice of funding availability basically says this funding is open for applications. You can go ahead and start submitting. And the application portal opened this month. The funding is offered over the counter to projects that meet threshold scoring criteria, with a priority for projects demonstrating ongoing operational viability. Unlike previous rounds where interim housing and sheltering was an eligible use, the Home Key Plus program must create permanent supportive housing units for people experiencing homelessness. The funding available to our region in Southern California is approximately 200 million, divided about half and half into 2 larger allocations. The general allocation is for members of the target population, which I'm going to define in just a moment. And the second allocation, which is about half of the funding, is for members of the target population who are also veterans. Within each of these allocations, there's an 8% set aside of funds for transitional age youth or young adults 18 to 24 who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. And just to update you, the county is currently working to identify partners and sites for Home Key Plus projects. So that process is currently underway. Next slide. Okay, the Home Key Plus target population is a little bit different than the Home Key program generally. So the target population, people who have to be homeless, chronically homeless, or at risk of homelessness, as defined by the Housing the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They need to be extremely low income and they must have a qualifying mental health or substance use disorder as defined in the regulations. Next slide. And I just, before I conclude here and hand this over to Jen Harkey, I just wanted to let you know of some other similar projects. Some of these are home keys, some of them are not, but these are all projects that are either in pre-development or under construction for similar populations. Most of them have set-asides of units for people experiencing homelessness with a mental health disorder. The outlier is Community Salute in the upper right-hand corner, that is for people with chronic health conditions. But you can see we have about 6 projects currently proposed countywide with 169 units proposed. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to Jen Harkey. Thanks, Jen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Harkey with the County Executive Office, and I serve as the Program Director for our Continuum of Care. Next slide, please. So as Kimberly mentioned, we have been doing our homeless count over the past week. We do a one-day unsheltered count throughout all service areas and throughout the county to cover continuum of care. We also survey everyone who's staying in shelters or motels paid for by programs, as well as transitional housing projects. This will give you an idea of our overall unsheltered and sheltered counts countywide over the past 2 years. The data that's coming in this week will be reported out later this spring. And that will be reported out to the Board of Supervisors as well as our Continuum of Care Board. Just to give you an idea, you'll see that there was a decrease overall countywide. We also had a significant decrease in the number unsheltered because we were able to offer more shelter beds really in COVID response during the pandemic. And we also received additional funding through state programs like encampment resolution funds, as well as the state homeless housing assistance and prevention program known as BHAB. Next slide, please. This gives you a little more detail on the subpopulations. So just to mention, we have a system called the HMIS system, Homeless Management Information System, and that's where we collect data on a regular basis through all of our programs. We're serving those who are unhoused or those who are in need of preventing homelessness. This actual data here shows you a picture of our snapshot, our point in time with each of our homeless counts from 2003 to 2023, excuse me, to 2024. And you will notice that there are some subpopulations here that we're really focused in on when we're looking at housing specifically and Home Key Plus. Chronic homelessness includes someone who has been homeless for at least a year or longer and also has a disability of some sort. So that combination will give us what we consider an important piece to really build more supportive housing units. Chronically homeless adults, specifically here, nearly 50% of our unsheltered population could qualify for supportive housing. There are also a large number of those who have health conditions, mental health, and also substance use. And I would mention that these are self-reported data points. So within our homeless counts, when we do surveys among the population, we're asking them to self-report this. And so once someone gets connected to services, for example, at the One Stop, at shelters, through street outreach, then we get to know people better, and our HMIS data can help show us what those populations look like over the course of the year. Next slide, please. So our unhoused veterans, I know there was a mention of Home Key Plus, and there's a specific amount of funding that could be available for our unhoused veterans. So we wanted to at least give you a picture of what that looks like today. The number who are currently unhoused and verified veterans are 74 veterans who are on our what's called our by name list. People we know by name that have been provided services throughout our veteran programs. That includes supportive services for veteran families, the veteran affairs, Veteran Services Office, Gold Coast Veterans Foundation, Turning Point, Salvation Army, the Human Services Agency. And those organizations work together on a regular basis to help get people matched to supportive housing vouchers, as well as matched to transitional housing or other housing programs. I'm really excited to report this because 60 of those 74 veterans have now been matched for housing. And we have new housing units that are opening up. 14 of those veterans are still seeking a match, and we have some additional housing units that are coming online soon. Next slide, please. So this will show you the new units. Ormond Beach has been in existence for a few years now through many mansions. And as units come available, we are matching veterans to those supportive housing units. Dolores Huerta Gardens is in development, and also Ventura Springs in Ventura. US Beds is an organization that's helping us connect people and working with the Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing to make sure that those veterans have vouchers and are able to get matched if they have a low income under 50% area median income. So this just gives you an idea of those units that are coming online to help us actually end homelessness among veterans. And our hope is to be able to do that this year with all of these projects. Next slide. The housing inventory chart, as Kimberly was mentioning earlier, a lot of the programs that we have that are supported through the continuum of care, rapid rehousing helps with rental assistance, and those who were literally homeless who needed that security deposit, first month's rent, for example, supportive housing, those who are getting vouchers or subsidized housing to be able to be successful. There's a large number of units that Tracy mentioned that are in development today that will help us get there as far as getting more chronically homeless adults and families off the streets. Transitional housing, you'll see that there's some under development, and that includes Mesa and Ojai that is now developed for transitional age youth, as well as Casa Pacifica. And transitional age youth are now going into some of these transitional housing units with the support of case management, and also tying in some rental assistance for those who are able to find units and get matched. Emergency shelters, the 30 beds that you see there are the new navigation center beds that are opening in Thousand Oaks. Very exciting. We saw the modular units getting delivered just this last week, I think it was. And so that project will actually open in the next couple of months. We're really excited to see that shelter open. And thanks to the state encampment resolution funding as a portion of that, as well as city and county funds to be able to bring that development to fruition. Next slide. All right, and I think we're going to wrap this up, but I just want to say my contact information is up there for anyone who has an interest in the continuum of care and the funding that comes from federal and state. Happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it back over to Kimberly. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentations. I know you're on a time limit, you have to leave, right?
So we're good until 3:30, but I
Oh, okay,
just
great.
didn't know if you wanted to do questions for myself, Tracy, or Jen before Sarah comes up, or
Yeah.
we wanted Sarah to speak first.
No, I think that because of the time, we'll maybe do you up first, if that okay for Sarah? Okay, great, yeah, Sarah, okay, good, okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Liz?
Hi, thank you so much. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for coming back. Quick question, of the 200 million, how much is Ventura County getting?
No, so the 200 million is our region where that's the bucket, and it will be based on our, application. So right now, we're still looking for a viable project to apply for the funding. So there's actually the pot is about 2 billion. And our region is 200 million.
And region includes Southern California?
It's Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial, and us, I believe, maybe Kern as well. So not LA County.
So all of those sister counties are gonna be looking, everyone's trying to get in on the 200 million.
Exactly.
So what is our effort like? How's it looking?
We are trying our best, right, to, we've been working hard actually for months, right? We all knew this was coming, to find a viable project. Developers, as you saw from most of the presentation, have been very busy with these supportive housing projects and the original home key projects. So it has been definitely more challenging to find viable projects for application this time in Ventura County, so I just want to be honest about that, so.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do we have any set amount that we're trying to get, or it's just gonna be
If
project
we
based?
can find every viable project we can find, I think Dr. Denninger and I will say we're gonna do everything we can to possibly apply,
Yeah.
but it has been, a really big challenge to find
Yeah.
viable projects. These, the state gets better and better at writing these things, and what I mean by that is they get longer and longer, all of the requirements. So if I'm a housing developer, this NOFA makes it sound like I'm gonna become a behavioral health service provider, I'll just be honest, right? If I read that NOFA, that's basically what I'm signing up for as a housing developer, so it's a tough way forward. But
No, it's a heavy lift, and I realize that. We have a lot of developers that are in private public, partnerships, and for the set asides that they have for UCBH clients, they are required, there are some community support services that are required, we have them over at River Park, so and so on, so developers, they can't cry, well, this is not a new thing. This also goes with tax breaks, a lot of other stuff, so most of them are willing to do this, so I'm just glad that we're in the mix of it, and I hope we can get as much as possible, because boy, I don't want to miss out on some of that 200 million. The other thing I want to ask you is the new transitional units, the navigation units going up 1,000 Oaks, the 30 beds that are going to be there, how long is the length of stay that someone can actually be there?
I don't know if they've actually said, I know, I ran a similar program before I came to Ventura County, and the average stay was 6 to 9 months. Sometimes, they up to 12 to 15 months, but I don't know if they've actually set have they set a maximum stay?
Maximum stay is 180 days, but the goal obviously is to get them into permanent housing, and so there can be extensions.
Yeah.
If they're working with case management.
That's what, okay, and then when you're talking about adults, are you including older adults 16 and over in this breakdown? Or older adults, okay, you might, just for future reference, you might want to indicate that includes the 60 plus over, because adults go to 59 and then above we have older adults.
And it's a growing subpopulation, so
Oh,
maybe it'd be good for us to
it's
have that
not
broken out, right?
Yeah, great, thank you, ladies.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. So did I hear you say that the numbers that you're reporting here are self-reported numbers?
So the actual count numbers with the bar chart, if we can, Jackie, can we flip back to that? So that's the actual point in time count, right? When we're going out and counting. And then we're surveying the person and we're asking them whether they, how long they've been experiencing homelessness, how many episodes of homelessness, if they have a chronic health condition, if they have a developmental disability. So that's when we're talking about self-report for that subpopulation data. So here, we're doing it based on observation and survey, but those subpopulations is based on what the person will report to us, or feel comfortable reporting to us when we're asking them questions.
So, sorry, I put my question here. Okay, so you're actually going into the field and you're like the riverbed or in Simi Valley and the washes, and you're actually collecting people and talking to them. That's good.
Yeah. Jen was in the Santa Clara River all morning before she came over here today.
And then I have one more question. So the shelter that Liz was referring to in Thousand Oaks. So if you can have a lengthy stay there, that doesn't really feel like a shelter for people experiencing homelessness on a crisis issue, like a crisis basis. So actually this weekend I had someone reach out to me and say their family member was homeless. And I didn't know where to tell them to go. I know there's a place in Camarillo, is it on Burley Drive? Chipper, where are you?
Where do you go?
So,
Darn it.
so I'll just answer real quick. You know, we always make sure to refer people through 211 as best as we can to get them connected to a service provider or go to the one-stop programs. One-stop programs have shelter providers that are regularly there, and I see Spirit of Santa Paula, and who's regularly in Santa Paula. You know, they have representatives there that can help get clients matched into shelter. Another way is through our law enforcement partners. We have homeless liaison officers and deputies in the field on a regular basis, and they're helping to get people connected with a services approach.
I know there's a big problem in City Valley, there's no shelter there. And you can go to the, what's it called, by the church?
Samaritan Center.
Yeah, the Samaritan Center, but really for someone experiencing, you know, crisis homelessness and Simi who has no car, no money for a bus, like, where are they gonna go? And it would be nice to get the word out to the, you know, the constituents of of Simi Valley, like, where do you go when this happens? What if you experience a crisis? You know, look, it was raining yesterday all day long. Where are these people sleeping? You know what I mean? I feel like we don't have enough, I know we don't have enough. There's nothing in Simi for people to go short term to get out of the cold weather. And I really think that's a missed opportunity.
And I think that, and you as a community, right, need to tell that to those Simi, you know, to your Simi Valley leaders, if you're looking to have a shelter there. Absolutely. But as far as the, it sounds like when we're talking about 6 to 9 month stays or 180 day stays, that it's not an emergency anymore. But I can tell you, you know, working across the coast, finding housing for someone that's experiencing homelessness takes time. And so we have to have these interim solutions that do take months to find the right housing inventory and the right housing opportunity. So even though it feels like that doesn't seem like an emergency service, that interim housing is critical, and it doesn't happen in a few days. Find someone. You want to reconnect them if they have family or something where it can happen quicker. Of course, everyone's trying to do that. But if you're actually looking for their, you know, them to rent a unit or get connected to a subsidy, I mean, that is taking months and in any system across California, I think today.
Can we get some information on what you were talking about, the 211 and some other emergency services?
Like a resource guide?
And there needs to be some resources that get out there. Maybe some of the community-based programs can get the word out, but I'm telling you right now, the people of Simi Valley do not know anything about these services.
So I will point people to venturacoc.org. That we have resources listed on that website. And then if you go to the Pathways to Home tab, there's a specific outreach tool there for anyone like staff who are trying to figure out where to direct someone to.
We'll definitely send a link and make sure you have some of those resource guides.
Okay, don't laugh at me, but you know what would be really great is if in each county, there was actually somewhere, maybe there already is, but somewhere where homeless people can go, like a big board or something that shows locations where to go if you're homeless, or phone numbers to call. Because somebody that's homeless doesn't have a computer to go to a website to figure out where to go. There's gotta be some place where they can post this information.
Yeah, so definitely, that's a great suggestion. I do think that one-stops happen throughout the county, even in places where there may not be direct shelter services. And so we'll make sure that you also have the list of when those are happening on a weekly or bi-weekly basis in those communities.
Thank you.
Because that way, right, instead of just handing someone a piece of paper, they're actually gonna get to talk to a person. And then hear what their needs are and someone actually help connect them to the right services. Sometimes handing the paper isn't always the answer either. Yeah.
Diane. Diane.
Janice had one too, so. Facebook, one of my friends who works for the Red Cross is coordinating fire. So she said a lot of folks are coming from LA, obviously to Ventura County. Is that, I know this is for, you know, folks that are chronically homeless, but now we've got a lot of folks needing homes coming up. Is that causing an extra jam up with 211? Are they completely separate? It just seems like it's gonna get worse.
I definitely think housing, we're already seeing like on Zillow and homes and apartments.com, right? Rents are escalating because of the LA fires, I think across the coast. But I have not heard a lot of actually impacts like people showing up at emergency shelters in Ventura County from the LA wildfires. So not like an impact so much to the homeless response system yet, but often just like with COVID-19, it's a much a delayed reaction, right? Someone has someone intermediate to go to, or they have a savings to last maybe for to 6 months, but then after that period, right, then if someone was really housing unstable, then they would lapse into homelessness after something like the wildfires. Yes.
Janice?
Thank you very much for your great presentation. We're really appreciative of all the housing that you provided. I wanted to ask you about permanent, you mentioned a proposed stay for TAUs of possibly, I think Jen, you said 180 days, and then it would transition to permanent housing. Is there permanent housing for TAUs currently?
I think she was specifically talking about the Dignity Moves project in Thousand Oaks, so we mentioned the 180 days, but I'll let her speak to the youth projects.
Yeah, so the youth projects are transitional housing, so Mesa and Ojai, and then Costa Pacifica, and those are both 2-year programs. So the goal there is after the 2 years ends is to transition someone with rapid rehousing, like rental assistance, into either like a home share type of model, right, where they're renting a room, or possibly roommates moving in together, looking at creative ways to try to get youth into housing. But those case managers are working closely with United Way, Human Services Agency, a lot of our agencies, behavioral health, to get those youth matched to housing by the end of 2 years.
And HUD loves to confuse us, right? There's emergency shelter, transitional housing, behavioral health bridge housing, interim supportive housing, I mean, just all kinds of words. So just think of all of those type of things. I kind of put them under the big bucket of an interim that someone can't stay there permanently, and then permanent housing being separate. But unfortunately, each time legislation or funding comes out, we get new words for what is kind of largely thought of as interim housing. So we apologize for having to use the HUD jargon, particularly that transitional housing defined by HUD is up to 24 months.
Thank you again. You can see there's a lot of interest in this topic, and we really appreciate all the information you're providing. But on your map, proposed PSH serving populations, and it appears, at least from my reading of the map, almost everything is in the western part of Ventura County. I'm just wondering, with the exception of the modular units that are coming to Thousand Oaks, are there any plans to have permanent housing in these counties?
Tracy jumped up, so I'm gonna let her answer that, but I think we also had a question over here, is that right? Did you still have a question? So we'll click on Tracy and then.
Yes, that's a great question, and we definitely have seen a lot more housing in West County and Central County. The county has been responsive to applications coming to us, so we're generally not picking properties like we want here, we want one here, we want one here. We're having housing developers come to us and say, here's a property, here's what we can do here, can we please have some funding? And then we assisted them to get the home key funding and other resources of the county. So I would love to see more East County projects, absolutely, I think we need them there, but we've been entirely responsive to what comes to us to be funded. So that's why you see that, I think, yeah.
James, I had called before on Chris and then you, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I absolutely look forward to emailing and learning more because it's really great work you guys are doing. The one thing that struck me on the table of reported data was the increase in domestic violence and abuse, sort of, and I know because it's self-reported, there's some, I'm sure, discrepancy in people feeling comfortable reporting, but it's a big uptick. But the question that I had was, I remember we had a presentation regarding a new program that had to do with individuals experiencing domestic violence, and just wanted to hear if that's wrapped into this. And
Justice Center. Thank you for, yeah, thank you for letting me share. So the Family Justice Center is one of those options. We also put more funding into the Coalition for Family Harmony and expanded shelter beds as well as transitional housing. Coalition for Family Harmony also has rapid housing, so rental assistance for families or those fleeing domestic violence. So we did, at least because of that data, right? We saw there was a massive need and a growing need over the past year. So there was an opportunity to help with some more grant funding in that area. The continuum of care, we were able to fund Coalition with federal dollars. And then more recently, the Family Justice Center also
apply for continuum of care, and we're waiting to hear on that grant application.
Thank you. And then just one more follow-up on your map too. What's the, what do these abbreviations mean? The BHBH or NLBH?
Yes, good question. We try to minimize the acronyms and then they always spill in somehow, don't they? So let's see. We have no NPLHs, we highlighted those specifically because that's the No Place Like Home program that actually was a behavioral health program a few years back. Kind of that move to housing that Prop 1 obviously put on steroids. No Place Like Home was kind of the first effort. So that's what you're seeing there, the units that were specifically funded under No Place Like Home, which was another state effort. Oh, and BHBH is Behavioral Health Bridge Housing. Again, come up with a new program. Let's come up with a new way to describe what is, you know, transitional or interim housing. And so some great, I know Sarah's going to talk about that, so I'm not going to steal her thunder. Some amazing work being done to get people into behavioral health bridge housing right now.
Thank you.
James?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Just a little on my background, so you understand where it's coming from. So the volunteer for 20 years, 10 of those years worked on the streets in Santa Barbara, Ventura, and then also I'm a veteran. So 2 questions. I'll try to one of my follow-ons. And there's a bit of education process that needs to happen as well. So I live in East County, and my other partners here, East County as well. It's glaring, there's no East County housing solution. So it sounds to me like you're very reactive to what comes in. You've actually had question. Who do we get in direct contact with from East County, talk about $70,000 notes to get those projects on the radar? Who contact them at? Or would we direct our supervisors to?
So we definitely need, you know, developers willing to take projects and city councils, right, willing to really be the leaders. You get a lot of community pushback. And I think Supervisor Lemire was gonna take that one on too.
I saw this map, right? It's very easy to misread this map. We really need city leadership.
Yeah.
So like the chief of police needs to talk to the city council type of thing. So the second.
Hear from community.
So the second part of it is understanding the homeless issues is that when I would work the streets and knowing the people that were homeless around my house, they knew where the services were. There are a lot of services in West County, so they're populated here and we'll talk to them. Why are you here? Because we know where the services are. And West County or East County people will be brought to the jail in Ventura, which is in the West County, and then state. So that's the other part of the issue for those that aren't aware of it. It's an ongoing, it's been an issue for decades. So with that little commentary on the veteran side, with your transitional housing aspect, is there any sort of career mentoring or training that goes on to keep them stable, or once they're stabilized and temporarily? Is there a program that you're working with that you help them stabilize?
Well, the projects that you saw on the screen, right, those are actually permanent housing projects. So both the supportive services for veterans and families and what we call veteran assistance supportive housing, which, you know, another acronym BASH, both of those would come with a lot of wrap services. And of course, having them in a project-based site, like the 3 we're talking about, the Ormond Beachville Villas, Ventura Springs, and Sparta Gardens will all have on-site services as well.
Jane, also the community colleges have veteran centers that are offering a lot of more services than they were offering credit for training, you know, college credits. So they don't start from zero for training that they received while in the military. So I think that if we can get those connected too, that you'll find there's a lot more help there as well.
And we're much of homelessness, right? We're relying on state dollars. We have seen continued federal investment in veteran homelessness, which one of the reasons we can build, you know, those sites and have a lot more outreach and, you know, reach to veterans that funding has continued to increase even in slim budget time. So we'll see, you know, new administration, we'll see what happens. Sean?
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. I'm curious, we're trying to revamp like our discharge process in the detention facilities. And so is there somebody that we can reach out to, or is any of this going to be available for those incarcerated that?
Talk to you about discharge planning. It's one of my favorite topics. I'm new, I started in November. But everywhere I've been, this is just a huge piece of, passionate about, helping the population being discharged from different institutions, particularly jail. So, I have a card over there. I'll make sure you get it.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, excuse me, I'm gonna take the prerogative to ask a question, and I'll go back to it. I just wanted to talk to the people from East County and kind of go further into what Matt said. When we were both on the city council in Ventura, it took the community pressure to get the homeless shelter that we have, in all honesty, but it was constant with the council. And we had a subcommittee that worked on these issues of councils, so I really think that it's up to each community to just pressure your city council and just tell them why it's so important and what the need is, and it'll happen, but it takes a village, as they say, so.
Cheryl, can I follow up on that? 'Cause you're right. I think a lot of these, the housing units you see on here were, some of them were privately initiated through the nonprofit developers. But a lot of the numbers that you see are because city councils came to the county and said, we have an idea, we have a project, we want you to partner with us. And it was city initiated. And that's why a lot of the units you see in the West County, or Oxnard, Ventura, they've really taken the initiative to push projects forward. And the county kind of follows up on their lead and helps create the housing. And you know, Thousand Oaks has tried, you probably saw on the paper that they had a project moving forward, the developer was a little nefarious. Not the city's fault. But it's so much of this starts with city leadership. Coming up with that council management, coming up with ideas, coming to the county, and it's the partnership that ends up creating it.
Yeah, very much so. And I just want to say also, in addition to that, it is the partnership with even private developers, but the city initiating, which the spring project that you're seeing has come online, particularly for veterans, that was the council's leadership. And going out and partnering with a developer, and then the veterans, I don't remember what their name is, but anyway, the one that's providing the services. So you just have to look at every angle. The problem with the homeless center in Ventura is that it only has 60 beds, and they're always full. And the reason they're always full, and people don't move out as soon as they can, is because there's no place to put them. So there's not enough supportive housing, or more of a transitional housing. Then once you leave a homeless shelter, you don't want to be homeless again. So, you know, that's part of the issue too. And I think that's where everybody's working together on that.
Would a petition help?
If everything helps.
Like a signed petition by the residents of District 4?
Yeah, sure.
Start
Everything
public
helps.
comment.
Yeah, exactly. Just coming and talking and having an organized group that's sort of leading it really helps. If you've got some kind of an organized group, could be faith, you know, whatever, that really makes a difference too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I wanted to ask you a question in terms of people who are maybe gonna become homeless, or you're identifying them as potentially homeless. How do you do that? What's the qualification for you might be homeless, and we're gonna help you?
So we have some pretty good indicators of what puts someone at risk, right? Prolonged periods of housing instability, lack of a support network, you know, their actual median income. But I think we're really trying, so prevention, as we talked about very briefly, when we went through the homelessness planning process, we really saw, right, that prevention was an area that we needed to grow in. And so recently, the continuum of care that we were referencing put in $2.5 million towards prevention. But there's ways to do that. Like it can be when sheriff's actually posting the notice, right? Or getting it to the courts where, you know, landlords are starting to work on 3-day notices to quit or things like that. So lots of different ways to reach prevention. But now that we actually have some dedicated resources, obviously more of that, making sure people are aware that exists once those contracts are in place.
Yeah, that's great. Michael?
I just wanted to follow up, but elected officials need to know that this is a priority. If no one, because they go through these election cycles. We have we have elected officials here and former elected officials, is that if they're going to get pushback on any type of homeless services. And so in order for them to be able to push back against it, they need to be assured that there's community support for these centers. There's always gonna be a reason to deny that it's too close to this, too close to that, too far from that. But the community needs to do it, come together and contact your elected officials. If you don't, then it's not gonna get done. Because the city, most of these city elected officials aren't gonna do it without knowing that there's community support behind it, because they're gonna get pushed back.
And when you're at any city council meeting and a housing project's going forward, for every one yes, there'll be at least 10 no's in the room. No matter what, it doesn't matter what kind of project it is. Then you add homelessness, then you add it's next to residential properties, those numbers can exponentially change.
Yeah, sure. Dahlia?
I wanted to say that, of course, the shelters are the most important thing, but on the side, having jobs is the most important thing. If people have jobs, then they are not gonna be homeless. So are there organizations that they can help them with, even basic jobs, like factories or something like that?
Well, I'll just share that a lot of our homeless population is working. I mean, that's the housing crisis and the cost of rents has made it where someone working a minimum wage job is falling into homelessness, often first into their vehicle and then, ultimately to the street. So absolutely, trying to increase income and making sure people are connected to jobs that aren't working is a very important part of our work, but don't want anyone to walk away with thinking that if you're working in Ventura County, you're not at risk of homelessness when rents are as high as they are.
Very good point. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
But other people got to speak. What is the status of the Vagabond Hotel? And so I see that there's extra rooms. Are there rooms? What are those? What were those?
So Sarah's actually gonna talk about you are Vagabond because it is a behavioral health bridge housing project.
Okay.
Are we ready for Sarah?
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, with that introduction. See how I'm doing here, but thank you, everyone. Sarah Sanchez, I'm the division chief for our critical care navigation services. So I'm actually here to talk about what we're doing within the department on the housing front. So that's actually a good question on Vagabond. So next slide. So I want to talk briefly, I won't get into it so much, but we have housing grants that we received through the BHAB grant, which is the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention grant, and that provides rapid rehousing for transitional age youth, so 18 to 25. And then we have our HUD COC grant that's administered through the COC, and that is about 500,000 that supports us in paying for rental subsidies. And this has actually been an ongoing grant that the county has received, our department, and have actually recently renewed the grant. So, and then we have our BHBH, which was talked about, that wonderful acronym, and that's the Behavioral Health Bridge Housing Grant. And I'll actually go on to the next slide that talks more about it. So, California Department of Healthcare Services awarded our BHBH grant funding. So our county actually received $13 million in BHBH grant funding. And what this is it's to pay for short-term housing support, really with the goal of connecting individuals to a longer-term housing stability during their stay in the transitional housing support. So how it was talked about, it's really a bridge to find a more longer term housing options for individuals. And as it was talked about earlier, it's not as easy as putting somebody into a shelter and a quick turnaround to exit them out. It really needs a stay. So within the BHBH grant, it's a 90-day stay with the opportunity to extend them even further if there's needed. If that individual's engaging, wanting that support, but not being able to find a longer term housing option. So during this time, the individual is engaging with our housing staff that is supporting them with ensuring that they're entered into our HMI system, ensuring that they're linked to the needed resources, and then identifying housing options. And this could be just a variety of ways in regards to being matched to housing opportunities, working if they have support system that they can be able to get linked to.
The BHBH grant actually sunsets in 2027, so the goal is to be able to set up structures so that as we move into BHSA, we can be able to have structures in place and really this opportunity to get our feet into the housing realm to talk about the resources and getting the needed services. One item that is crucial with BHBH grant is the individual, in order to qualify for the program funded project, they must have a serious behavioral health diagnosis. So ensuring that they're either having a diagnosed mental and or substance related diagnosis and a significant impairment in their functional daily living. So it's individuals that are our level of care and homeless at the time of the referral. Next page. Sorry, next slide. So out of the BHBH grant, we've actually funded several projects. One of those is entering into lease with Vagabond in Ventura. So this serves as a transitional shelter. It's composed of 80 units. So we're actually utilizing 79 because we have one of those units as our office for our case managers there on site. So they're co-located at the shelter, being able to provide that case management, that connection, that support to ensure that they're being able to be successful in this transitional living environment to then support them with linking them to more permanent housing options. The referrals are made through our HMIS system. So outside entities, agencies that are working with individuals that are unhoused with a serious behavioral health diagnosis, they make that referral in, and then our BCBH outpatient clinics as well are making those referrals. And then as we worked with COC, they utilize those units as well for our PRK clients. So we're utilizing a little bit less than those 79 units, but as individuals are exiting out, we're ensuring that we're supporting those individuals that need that support. So it's a great opportunity to be able to support and be able to engage individuals and support them with the interim housing option as we're working with them to identify a more longer term housing option. Next slide, Jackie, please. And I do want to mention as well the collaborative partnerships that we have through this grant, through our BHBH grant. It's allowed us to fund different partnerships. So we've contracted with the Spirit of Santa Paula. They provide us 8 shelter beds. So these are our units that are specifically for those that are BHBH eligible. And they provide a 90-day stay, and the team within the Spirit of Santa Paula are partnering with us to be able to support the individual to provide that intensive case management and finding a more longer term housing option for the individuals. We've actually had really good success and partnership in this. And then Turning Point Foundation as well. They have 4 shelter beds specifically for our BHBH eligible individuals as well, and partnering with them so that they're working with the individuals. Kepra House as well, they've allocated specific beds for through recovery residents. And so they as well provide short-term housing support for individuals dealing with substance use or co-occurring disorders. We've as well partnered with Housing Authority of San Buenaventura, which is Valentine Road, which was mentioned earlier in the presentation, supporting 40 units with rental assistance. And the partnership there, we actually are co-located at Valentine Road with case managers to provide that case management support to ensure that success of the individuals residing there through their permanent supportive housing. And then we're as well working with local property management for our scattered site rental assistance. And this is really partnering with the community that are willing to enter into a partnership to be able to pay for rental subsidy for a short period of time for families. And we've actually as well had success in being able to do that. And then we are going to be going out for a proposal for recovery support housing as well through the Housing First model that as well will be funded through BHBH. Next slide. And then I want to talk a little bit about what we do. So housing before
for the initiative and the strong push of ensuring to support individuals, we've always had that housing support through the clinics in regards to working in partnership with local property managers and supporting the individuals so they can be successful in their housing and being able to support them with interim housing. But the current state in the now is we have now a housing clinic administrator that sees our direct housing operations, a housing administrative assistant that, as we're trying to ensure that we're centralizing the needed resources, being that point of contact for our HMIS for our department. And then we're under the two specific grants, which is BHBH that I talked about earlier, and then Venture Home Grant, which is intensive case management for those individuals identified to be justice involved. And then supporting the clinics with the resources and the needed support to link individuals. And then proposed future state, we know that as we continue to analyze and look at what the need is within BHSA and where the funding is going to be and how to best support, is really the goal is to continue to provide that intensive case management support and support the individuals that are in-house to ensure that they get that linkage and needed. So really the goal is to continue with the efforts as grants sunset, you know, to be able to look at funding sources and be able to support the need. I think that's all for me. If there's any specific, I gave very high overview of items, but glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Liz? Hi, Sarah, thanks for coming. You've got a lot going on. Thanks for your time. So just a quick question. We're leasing 3 units at the Vagabond Hotel. But you said that we're using 79 units. One is for an office and we're leasing 36. So I'm not sure. Break that down for me.
So we're leasing Vagabond Inn, it consists of 80 units. So out of those 80 units, one is utilized as an office space. And then we're subleasing with COC for those individuals that were PRK clients. And so as individuals are exiting, then it allows for more units to come online for us to serve. Given a number, I mean, each day it changes and it evolves, but wanted to provide that overview of units. Because we want to ensure that we're partnering with COC as we continue to limited resources on interim housing and shelter opportunities.
So then what are the other, so the other units are going to whom?
To COC.
COC has the 36 out of the 80. You have 80, one's an office, 79, 36 are COC. Where are you, who's using the other ones?
BHBH eligible.
Okay, so they're just not attached to COC. That's
No,
a different.
sorry, I apologize. Oh, go ahead.
No, so we're back up. So in the fall of this year, this past year, we took over the lease. So there was already existing services happening there that was managed by the COC. So once we took over the lease, we weren't gonna tell people who were already there, "Ooh, sorry, you guys leave."
Right.
So we're subleasing those units to COC while we upload and increase the BHBH. So as those PRK old units turn over, they will convert into BHBH units.
Okay, are the COCs BHBC units or are they COC?
No, so the PRK, that's COC, BHBH is this department.
Okay, great. So then the other question I have, the DHCS, the 13 million grant is, and all this is gonna be sunsetting. And we're looking at how we're gonna continue to make this sustainable. Are we trying to keep it at that 13 million level, or is that doable, do you think, or is it looking at a lower level of funding?
No, I'm sharing how much the grant we received through BHBH. I mean, that's what we're looking at in the now is to ensure that we're utilizing the funding needed to be able to look at the different resources and needs. And I'm looking at Dr. Demery.
Yeah, so we received the 13 million as part of the BHBH funding in December of 2023. I brought it to this board, right? We talked about that. what Sarah's saying is as the fund sunset, this is part of the overall work that we have to do as part of the BHSA planning for housing to determine how much money we have for all of these various projects that right now are grant funded. So will they all be at the existing level? We don't know. We don't know how much money we're gonna have, right? So that's when we start to prioritize how much money we have based on meeting the 30% marker. How much can go where? And so we'll be able to fund projects based on how much funds are available.
So I guess my concern is, and this is just probably me being, I don't know, a little overly concerned, but we're gonna be ramping up and we're funding with 13 million, it's been back since we started 2023, it sunsets in 2 years. And a lot of folks will be left high and dry, right? If we don't have the funding to sustain this.
So that is the concern,
Right.
because all of these projects were initiated before Prop 1 existed.
Right. So I guess we need to look at moving forward ways to mitigate that, obviously, from happening and to identify, other forms of funding or wherever monies are gonna be moved from, because I know stuff has to go from, isn't stuff going from PE&I to fund housing and FSPs?
No, so that's a whole separate, PEI is going away in the way that it is now, the
Right.
prevention piece is going to the state.
Right.
The housing piece comes from core services. Your outpatient services, your
Okay.
crisis services, that is the piece where the new 30% housing bucket comes from all of those other places.
Okay, so that PE&I money is, I'm sorry, I thought it was being reallocated. It's
No,
not.
No,
It just goes
prevention
away.
is gone.
I know
It's
that,
allocated at the state level.
right,
The EI portion remains, but in a very different way. So not in the way that it is currently.
right, so, but that funding that's attached to early intervention is, like, how is that going to become a tangible, like, what is that going to materialize at, we don't know?
That's where we're waiting for more guidance from the state on
Okay.
how they're gonna determine what qualifies for an early intervention under Prop 1.
Okay, and then the last thing is the VCBH housing org chart you gave us, is that what's replacing ARS?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I'm confused by that org chart that you showed.
That is more the direct operations of our housing team, what they provide in the now. As we created a housing team through the grant funded position, grant funding that allowed to allocate funding for the positions. So there's a team that's dedicated to the intensive case management for those that are just as involved. And they provide that intensive case management on the housing front. And then the other, within the org chart is our BHBH housing team that there as well are supporting through the BHBH funding. So there's staff that are co-located out at Valentine Road. There's staff that is located at Vagabond, and then there's staff that are supporting with partnership with like Spirit of Santa Paula and Turning Point. So it's not a removing of existing program, it's being able to these positions are grant funded. And so that's where we talked about future state as to analyzing and looking at, funding and sustainability, because we want to ensure that we're providing the services, but within the parameters that we can, given all the upcoming changes.
Thank you for that clarification, and I would just say, once again, that all of these are great opportunities down the road to look at staffing with peer support specialists who can help individuals maintain and keep their transitional permanent housing. Something, I used to do that as a member of the ethics team, and it's a very rewarding thing to do with clients and peers to help them maintain their housing. And we always want to make sure that they're in the proper level of housing, level of care. But this is like a right environment for peer support specialists to come in and help folks.
We actually do. I didn't outline that, but we do actually with Venture Home. We have 2 peer support specialist positions. One is filled and the other one's actually we're onboarding in a peer support specialist.
Great.
So we, continue to expand and ensure
There you
that.
go. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say it's extremely difficult to follow some of these conversations when you have 10 acronyms in one sentence. So I don't know if there's a better way we can have these conversations, but I'm having trouble.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
I just want to say, I work a lot with developers just to get land entitled, and even the affordable housing quotient that we all know is not very affordable. Is, you should read the comments on Nextdoor to understand the pressure these electeds are up against. I'm really telling you, it is take more than a petition, it's gonna take a continued process. There are people that don't even believe affordable housing should be built in their city or their neighborhood because they work so hard to live there. It's really, it's hard to read, but you have to understand what they're up against to understand how big of an army you're gonna have to bring to the table to help them.
I mean, acronyms, well, that is a problem, I think, for many of us, to just, if we can just, maybe at the beginning of a presentation, just identify when you hear blah, 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 it means da, 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 da. And maybe that would be helpful. It's not a criticism of you. I mean, everybody, it's just so easy to have them and you need them for each other for the shortcut, but it is for the layperson. A challenge.
It's also for our internal conversations, you know, between ourselves when we're talking, it's not just Sarah.
Oh, no, we try to do our best on the slides there. I hope that you had a copy there that provided the acronyms, but yes, I will try to do that. Sometimes we live in acronym worlds that, you know, we live and repeat it, so thank you.
Yeah, so it's noted. Any other questions or comments for Sarah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for all the work you do. Well, this was great. I think we all learned a lot about housing and homeless and what's going on. It's very helpful. Thank you for suggesting that. Okay, moving to board member comments and announcements. Any board members want to say anything at this point? Liz?
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. So there's something I want to share with you, all of a personal nature. There's been a bit of a development with my status and being able to continue to serve on the Behavioral Health Advisory Board as a consumer advocate. I had conversations last week with our state director of the Cal BHBC, Teresa Comstock, who reached out to me and wanted to double check what in fact my title was as a consumer who also is the executive director of it as a BCBH contractor. And as it turns out, there's a caveat in the WIC code that although I'm a consumer and I can serve as a consumer who works for a contractor with BCBH, I cannot serve if I'm in a position of authority or influence over the contract. And since I'm the executive director, therein lies the rub. So there's a conflict of interest. So I had numerous conversations I had great conversation with Teresa a couple of times. I reached out and spoke to my supervisor's office and my chief of staff, Amy Peak. And I had to tender my resignation and explain to them what the problem was. A lot of folks here may not be aware that for a while, consumers who worked for contractors couldn't even be on the board. Then they adjusted that and they said, yes, because we needed consumers to make up the board. And it's hard to find consumers that aren't already in this space that might bring some, not just lived experience, but understanding of the system. But what I was not aware of, and either were the two supervisors that appointed me, is that the caveat is you can be a consumer that works for a contractor, but you can't be the one that's interacting and negotiating dollars, scope of work, the allocation of funding. And so with a heavy heart, today is my last day. I'm stepping down from the board. It has been an absolute pleasure to serve in the 5th District, working with Chair Emeritus Michael Rodriguez, Chair Emerita Janice Gardner, and current Chair Cheryl Heidman, and Loretta Dennering, and John Schipper. But I am not comfortable with any perceived conflict of interest, and I think this is the best thing to do. We always knew that you couldn't serve if you worked for a BCBH contractor, but the reason that I was able to get on the board is there had been an opening, there have been openings, and there had been the addition of consumers being allowed to serve if you worked for a contractor. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So thank you all for being great colleagues and allowing me to be in this space with you. Thanks so much.
Well, you've been a terrific board member. I think we'll miss you as a board member, but certainly that's a personal decision and respect what you're doing. Hopefully you will continue to community member that's involved.
I will be, but I think it's important to remember, this is WIC code. It's not just a Liz personal decision on in compliance with the Welfare and Institutions Code, and I think that's the overriding factor here, but thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other board member comments on?
Yeah, Liz, I've always enjoyed working with you, your insight, your passion, your diligence is invaluable. And I know we wouldn't have been able to do what we did throughout the years, but for your work, your persistence. So I really appreciate you serving on the board with you.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna miss working with you, and we still welcome your insight and your input because it's invaluable. So thank you.
Thanks, Genevieve.
And I too want to echo the sentiments, Liz. It's been a pleasure to work with you. My comment is actually about something a little bit different. And I just want to be upfront that, you know, I find myself a little bit distracted this afternoon. And I would be remiss to not address this in my board comments. So just today alone, I've received 3 different reports of ICE in Ventura County. 2 in Oxnard, 1 in Santa Paula. My organization, MyCog, dispatches staff to verify these reports, but more often than not, by the time we arrive, whatever was seen is no longer there, and they moved on to the next location. I can confirm that there has been 1 detention at the WIC office in Oxnard. And so I want to emphasize this because the fear within our immigrant communities at this time is very real. And especially with whatever information is out there on social media, whether it's correct, incorrect, verified or unverified, you know, it requires a complex network of volunteers and staff to do these verifications. And the mental health impacts of these incidents within our immigrant community are going to be felt for a very, very long time. So I just wanted to bring this up in this space. We had confirmed ICE in Santa Barbara County yesterday with detentions and whatnot, but you know, for this board and for us in our individual spaces and lanes, as we do this movement work, it's a critical issue that demands our attention and care. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Jennifer?
I just wanted to tell you, Liz, that I have an extreme amount of respect for you. I really have learned a lot from you on this board. Kim came in just as a mom, and your voice is so important and it needs to be heard, and you're gonna be missed. And I know I don't know what's gonna happen to me next. I'm in the same situation you are, but I just want you to know that I really respect you, and I think you're a very smart, intelligent voice. And thank you for all the service you've done to this board.
Thank you, Jen.
Janice?
Yeah, I just want to address Liz too. Liz you've just been a wealth of information and a great help. And Liz was the first vice chair when I was chair, and you really, really assisted and helped in so many different ways. And you just, you have a lot of history behind you and a lot of knowledge. And I just really hope that as a community member, you will, you know, stay very active and join our meetings. So thank you for everything.
Chris?
Thank you, Liz, for everything. I've looked up to you for a long time and will continue to do so. So just thank you. And with that said, I just wanted to have full transparency. I know we're not discussing the whole conflict of interest thing this week, but I also serve on the board of a nonprofit. I'm the chief executive officer there. So I'm just waiting to hear back and consult with the supervisor Parvin to, you know, make that confirmation, of course. But I will most likely be following the same path as you, but just wanted to just say thank you for the way you handle everything with grace. It's just
Well, thank you for this. It's been a pleasure as a fellow consumer serving with a great consumer.
thank you.
James?
Liz, thank you. I want to echo that sentiment as well. I think you were the first person to reach out to me and ask me if I'd be the second vice chair. Very convincingly, you reassured me that it was not a big time task. But I just wanted to note, not only on your years of service, I'd like to recommend that we discuss and properly award you at the conclusion of whatever the outcome of this new legal finding. It's important to note that the Fair Political Practices Commission clearly states what is a conflict. I know the WIC does, the Welfare and Institutions Code does not align directly with the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Commission. That says you have to, you can't vote on a financial matter that directly impacts you. So we have a member of the board of supervisors here. My hope is that at some point the law is looked at and maybe even revised to address that issue, because we're not elected officials. And in good faith, you didn't make any decisions that directly impacted you, to my knowledge, financially, and that's the big overarching concern. So nobody's here to do anything other than to help the community. So I want to just particularly note that your years of service helped educate me as well. I can speak for myself, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, James.
Nancy? Well, I certainly, voice everyone else's appreciation for your visibility on this issue very much. I want to say that this issue is impacting in a very serious way the composition of our board. It's also mandated. If we lose all our peers who give us the most valuable insight, they know what's going on. They know how it works. And we need them. We need them on our board. And there's probably not much we can do about this, or maybe there is, I don't know. But I hope that we bring this up, and I know you talked about agendizing this, and I sincerely, force that, please. And, but I sure will miss you.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much. I just want to say you have a very special place in my heart. You know, I've been doing this since 2008. You mentored me in the early days. I mean, I just meet you and Tim Nani or two. I consider very close colleagues and friends. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Any other board comments? Okay, moving along, whole business. Dan Notebook, Diane?
Well, today I got a lucky break because almost every piece of data that I didn't have to answer these questions is in the presentation that was given today, because it's all about homelessness and data between 23 and 24. And so absent a couple of things that I stepped back and asked them that I can call to get a couple of points, I got all my questions answered, so I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Okay, great. Awesome, okay. Okay, we are gonna meet as work groups, as I mentioned before, following this, and so we're gonna talk in each individual work group about chairs. I'm not doing that today. New business, and we have, you're up. She's gonna be covering A and B for us under new business.
Good afternoon, my name is Courtney Dubell and I'm the Mental Health Services Act Manager. So I just have two announcements that I want to bring to the board's attention as well as those who are listening online. The first is that today is the 30-day posting and public review period for the Collaborative Care for Youth, integrating collaborative and behavioral health models for comprehensive mental health services innovation project. All feedback can be sent directly to MHSA@ventura.org by February 24th, 2025. Your feedback is really welcome and we appreciate your input on these innovation projects. The second announcement is that the Ventura County Community Health Improvement Collaborative, otherwise known as VCHIC, Community Health Needs Assessment Survey, which is the acronym is CHNA, takes place every 3 years in collaboration with the Department of Public Health and other local health jurisdictions, and in collaboration with Ventura County Behavioral Health. And it's now live. It went live on January 13th. And this is for all Ventura County residents. So the request, the shout out, and is that please, everybody in this room, pick up your flyer, go to your QR code. It's in your electronic packet, it's in hard copy here. Please let your friends and family that live in Ventura County know about it. It takes about 10 minutes online to fill out. We do have hard copy available. Should you want hard copy, you can email us at mhsa@ventura.org to request a hard copy. We can figure out a drop off or a pickup. But our efforts on this is really a shared effort to have everyone's voice contribute to the community health needs, right? So part of why this is being pushed and agencies across the county are pushing for it is that the input on this survey helps to inform our integrated plan, which will be a part of the Prop 1 implementation. So what we learn about the community health needs will in part be informed by what you share, right? So it's really important that you and your family and your friends participate as an active member of the community to identifying your community health needs, right? So we really encourage everybody, like, just get your friends, just have a party, just sit down and take 10 minutes each and do it all together. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us at mhsa@ventura.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions currently? Okay, good. Presentation requests. And recognition award recommendations, I think there've been a couple, so we'll be discussing those at the executive committee and bring forward. Contracts. There were several approved contract agreements that have been to the board. We have them in the packet. Does anybody have any questions or comments on any of those? Okay. Yes, the same.
Oh, is that, there's the contract?
Yes.
I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank you very much for the contract with the Ventura County Community College District. It was a constant, I was at a conference this weekend and all of the colleges are overrun with these kind of things. So the help will be greatly appreciated, used well, and just want to say thank you very much.
Okay, and then moving to the Board of Supervisors approved agreements, December 17th meeting. Again, is there any comments or questions on those particular items? Okay, any additional public comments? Nope, I don't see any. Okay. So we are going to adjourn our meeting. Next meeting is February 24th. Again, it's not the third Monday, unfortunately, which we usually do because of holiday. We have to go to the 24th.
And at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, right? But everybody was here too. Well, I don't know if it was. Did you come at 1? Oh, okay, sorry. We did send a reminder.
I found a place to work, so.
That's great. Okay, so I'm gonna adjourn and, oh, and I was gonna read before I do that. The work groups so that you know which one you're on, and hopefully we can stay for just about 5 minutes to just meet one time and sort of figure out another time to get going. So the TABE work group is Diane, Janice, CJ, Matt, Andre, Delia, Jeff, and Marlene, sorry. And the crisis services is Nomi, Soledad, Michael, James, Sean, Genevieve, Chris, Nancy, and Jennifer. Okay, so what I'd like to do is adjourn the meeting and then just informally, we're just gonna meet. Jay is over here, Bryce is over here, however you wanna do it. And we'll hopefully get going. Okay, thank you. Adjourned.